and gentlemen, thanks for joining me today. It is Wednesday. We're going to go over wide receivers, and then we're also going to get to our tight ends and defensive options. We'll either get that video later tonight or early tomorrow morning so you can be fully prepared with what you need to dominate your opponents this weekend. If you are new to the channel or haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate the support and it helps me out a ton on my road to 100 subscribers. If you have any start or sit questions, or if you're wondering about trade values, please drop those down below. I would love to help you out. You can also reach out to me on the Sleeper app. I'm available there as well. With that all out of the way, let's get into Week 9's wide receiver rankings. Starting off the list at number 1 is my little Cooper Kupp at home against Tennessee. And Cooper really let down owners this past week, finishing as just the wide receiver 6 with a paltry 115 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the guys finished wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 1 in back-to-back weeks before this. So what am I supposed to say? Up next at number 2, it is Deebo Samuel at home against Arizona. Deebo broke his 3-game scoring streak as he came up just short on an electric 84-yard catch and run where he dived and was called in the end zone initially before being ruled short on the review. He's going to be called upon heavily in this one as the Niners try to keep up with Arizona. Just keep an eye on that injured calf of his. At number 3, it is Tyreek Hill, who gets the Green Bay Packers at home. 18 targets was not enough to get Hill over the century mark last week, which is slightly concerning, but you certainly can't complain with the target share. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have other dependable wide receiver options at this point, and Hill is due to explode soon. This seems like the week in a high-scoring affair with the Pack. Our 4th ranked player is Jamar Chase at home against Cleveland. Chase had a down week as well, finishing as just wide receiver 27. However, in the games that he has come off of lower than wide receiver 2 finishes, he has 3 finishes in the top 6. So good luck to you, Cleveland. We move on to Stefon Diggs on the road against Jacksonville, and he has now scored in back-to-back games for the first time all year. However, he is still just wide receiver 23 on the year. I am not worried about him just yet, but if he doesn't come up big in this game, that would certainly be warranted. Justin Jefferson on the road against Baltimore is our next player, and he's ranked number 6. He has cooled off considerably over his last 2 weeks, and this past week, he had less catches than CJ Ham, who happens to be the Vikings fullback. I think in response to that, Kirk Cousins gets him involved heavily, and he should see double-digit targets in this one. Sliding a little bit down our rankings is Davante Adams on the road against Kansas City. He's here at 7. There's a little bit of concern with what he's going to look like coming back from COVID, and there's even more concern now that Aaron Rodgers has COVID and he's going to be with Jordan Love. I think there's certainly risk. However, it's Davante Adams, so you bet on the talent. At 8, it is A.J. Brown on the road against the Rams. Dropping a bit due to the anticipated shadow from Jalen Ramsey, Brown has been unstoppable as of late. With Julio Jones' health an issue and no King Henry, Brown could see over 15 targets easily. With that target share, his upside is astronomical. We move on to number 9, and it is CeeDee Lamb at home against the Broncos. This is a decent matchup, and Lamb is certainly thankful for being on my buy list in week 5. Ever since then, he has 25 targets, 347 yards, and 3 touchdowns in those 3 games. He is a stud. We move to DeAndre Hopkins on the road against the Niners, and he rounds out our top 10. We're going to have to watch reports with what's going on with his hamstring as he played sparingly last week, and if that is an issue moving forward, it's certainly going to hurt the Cardinals offensively. However, if he is healthy and good to go, Kyler Murray will certainly look his way a ton. At 11, it is Deontay Johnson at home against the Bears. Stars perform under the lights, and Johnson is one. He made it 5 straight games with top 20 finishes in a row last week, and now gets Chicago, who is a bottom 5 passing defense, allowing 41 points a game to the position. Keenan Allen on the road against Philadelphia is our final wide receiver 1 in week 9. As predicted, Allen's resurgent got off to a good start with a wide receiver 15 finish last week. If he can avoid Darius Slay in this one, I think that he keeps that momentum going, and I also think that he does just that. Michael Pittman at home against the Jets is next. He is our 13th ranked player. Ranked at 13 is fitting for him because he is the season's wide receiver 13. And even in a tough matchup against a Jets team allowing less than 32 points a game to wideouts, Pittman is likely to produce in a big way. He is the only reliable target that Carson Wentz has. Up next, at 14 is Mike Williams on the road against Philly, and after duds in 3 out of his last 4 games, Williams is still the wide receiver 12 on the season. However, this is a top 3 matchup in that Philly secondary, so he's going to have some overcoming to do if he doesn't want to make it 4 duds in the last 5. Robert Woods is at home against Tennessee, and he is our 15th ranked player. It seems like forever since there was panic in the streets over Woods' lack of production and involvement in this offense. He is the same that he's always been: consistent, dependable, with upside in bunches. At 16, it is Adam Thielen on the road against the Ravens. On fire over the last 2 weeks, Thielen has been a focal point of Minnesota's offense and Kirk Cousins' favorite target. He will need to continue this streak if the Vikings want to keep up with Baltimore. We move on to 17, and it is DJ Moore at home against the Patriots. With CMC finally coming back from injury, this should help DJ considerably, as he has not looked the same since defenses have been able to focus on him. Marquise Brown is our 18th ranked player. He is at home against the Vikings. He has to be licking his chops after seeing what Cooper Rush did to Minnesota's secondary last week. His deep game propensity will be lethal against the Vikings. Next up at 19, it is Brandon Cooks on the road against Miami. Cooks produced wide receiver 1 numbers last week, gets a top 2 matchup in a Miami Dolphins defense allowing over 43 points a game, and now gets a quarterback upgrade with Tyrod Taylor returning. Yeah, sign me up. The final player in our top 20 is Amari Cooper at home against Denver. Cooper led the Cowboys to a big win without Dak, seeing 13 targets as Cooper Rush's go-to guy. He probably doesn't see that many targets again all year, but maybe he should. In the 2 games that he's seen double-digit looks, he's combined for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns. As we move on, it is T. Higgins at home against Cleveland. He is our 21st ranked player. And as I requested last week, Higgins did more with less, turning 6 targets into 97 yards. He hasn't scored since week 2, but this feels like the game where he hits pay dirt once again. Chase Claypool is our 22nd ranked player. He is at home against Chicago. You beat the Bears through the air, and this feels like a big game for Claypool in a monster game for the Steelers. At number 23, it is Cole Beasley on the road against Jacksonville. Beasley is easy to forget in an offense that has a ton of playmakers, but he has 24 targets in his last 2 games with the Bills and 198 yards and a score to show for it. Jacksonville allows over 40 points a game to wide receivers, so you can start him with confidence. Our final wide receiver 2 in week 9 is Courtland Sutton on the road against Dallas. The Cowboys allow the 8th most points per game to the position, so there is rebound potential here after a disastrous week for Sutton last week. Even if it's garbage time points with Dallas nursing a big lead, they still count. Jalen Waddle is next up at number 25 at home against Houston. Do not panic with Waddle's final stat line. He still saw 12 targets, and we knew that the matchup was brutal. It gets easier here as Houston has allowed 109 points to wideouts over the last 2 weeks. Moving on to 26, it is Emmanuel Sanders on the road against Jacksonville. And after goosing for us last week on 4 targets, Josh Allen is certainly going to give Sanders a few more looks to try to get him more involved. I like his chances against the Jags. Jerry Jeudy at Dallas is our 27th ranked player, and Jeudy was limited last week, but I expect his workload and snap share to continue to increase, barring a setback, which he has yet to have. After 4 targets last week, expect at least 6 or 7 here with upside. 28 comes in with Jarvis Landry on the road against the Bengals. This offense lacks upside within the passing attack, but Landry has 18 targets in his last 2, and the Bengals are a bottom 10 defense to pass catchers. We move on to 29, and it is Christian Kirk on the road against San Francisco. No one showed up in Arizona's offense last week, but Kirk still was able to see 6 targets. It is likely that AJ Green takes a backseat this week, for obvious reasons, and Nuke is also potentially banged up, so Kirk is going to benefit. Tyler Boyd is at home against Cleveland and up next at 30. His role seems secure as he has 15 targets in his last 2 games. He has 108 yards and a touchdown in that span. There are enough targets that can go around in Cincy. Devontae Parker versus Houston is up next at 31. He helped Tua a ton last week and saw 11 targets in his first game back after a 3-week absence. If he can stay healthy, he could shoot up these rankings fast. We move then to 32, and it is Devonta Smith at home against the Chargers. Smith's last 3 finishes are wide receiver 70, 36, and 90, so there are risks here in bunches. I, however, expect the Chargers to score a lot, so Smith is going to need to be involved for Philly to be able to keep up. Moving on to 33, it is Marvin Jones Jr. versus Buffalo at home. It is so hard to start a wide receiver against the studs in Buffalo, but someone has to catch passes from Lawrence, and Jones is his preferred option. Kadarius Toney against Las Vegas at home is next at 34. He might be the healthiest Giant wide receiver that is left standing, so targets are going to be available to him. The Raiders are a top 4 defense, however, allowing just 31 points per game. Jacoby Myers at Carolina is our 35th ranked player, and his targets have increased in 4 straight weeks. It is possible that he sees double digits in this game, but Carolina's defense has been excellent against wideouts. The final player on our list at 36 is Van Jefferson at home against Tennessee. He gets a boost because Deshaun Jackson has been cut from the Rams, and they run the most 3 wide receiver sets in the NFL. They have to trust him to be able to make that type of a move. He has 13 targets in his last 2. We finish off the video with our notable omissions. The first one is Jamison Crowder at Indianapolis, and there are just too many options in the passing game here with no clarity on who is going to pick up the work. The final player is Darnell Mooney on the road against Pittsburgh, and it's just hard to trust any Bears pass catchers, and the upside is not worth the risk here. Thanks for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, drop them down below. If you are new or if you haven't got to it yet, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out on my road to 100 subscribers. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opatz, and we'll see you next time.